All right, it's Wednesday. It's that time again. High school football game of the week at WKYC.com. I'm DeNatale. That's Tyler Carey. Week number 8. It is winding down so fast, and we're in for a treat this Friday night as we can now announce, TC, where we'll be heading for our WKYC.com high school football game of the week. Two teams that, since we started this, we have not seen yet. Two, traditional powers, including one uber traditional power.
That's an understatement, I would think.
I mean, this is exciting stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Our game of the week this week will be in Summit County. Bit of a hike for us, but we felt like it was worth it. The Massillon Tigers against the Barberton Magics. Dino, Massillon, we have known this all year, has been one of the best teams in the state. We think that this could be their best shot to win that first state championship in over 4 decades. Barberton, for the last few years, I wouldn't put them quite on Massillon's level, but they've certainly been a nice little D2 power.
It's very consistent, strong.
And this will be one of Massillon's, other than maybe that McKinley game, this is going to be one of their tougher road games of the year.
It's funny, talking to already some people down in Stark County, including my old colleague and who covers Stark County football, Kenny Rhoda, this week. He said, the one thing with Massillon, they really haven't been tested yet.
No.
I mean, they've really kind of coasted their way through this season to this point. I was looking up and down their schedule. I mean, it's not for a lack of scheduling good opponents, including somebody from Pennsylvania.
Two teams from Penn Trafford, who's 7-1. Their only loss came to Massillon by 21 points. And then last week, Gateway PA, they beat them by 36, and that's a team that's 6-2 right now.
Yeah. A couple of Mahoning County and East Ohio powers. And
St. V early in the year.
Yeah, Austintown, Fitch, Harding, St. V, Glen Oak. I mean, they've steamrolled past everybody. And this is interesting now on the flip side for the Magics because, they were, again, a traditional power, well-positioned in their region, in Region 6, as one of the top 8 teams. And then a funny thing happened. They hosted Aurora last week, and, Bob Mahalick's team went in there and steamrolled them.
Well, we shouldn't be too surprised by that because, look, Aurora has been known to do that to teams where they'll be in what you would think is going to be a tough matchup. And this isn't to take anything away from Barberton, but Aurora will just come in and say, all right, we'll take care of business.
Yeah.
You're out of here. And that's exactly what the Greenmen did. So I wouldn't be too disappointed in that if I was a Barberton player or a Barberton fan, but it certainly does throw a wrench in your season, especially with the Tigers coming up this week.
Because now all of a sudden, Massillon can, if there's a category for controlling your own destiny in the computer rankings, Massillon is way up above everybody else. But for Barberton, that loss to Aurora knocked them out of the top 8. They're number 9 in Region 6. There's still a long way to go. A lot of things can happen. Some of the teams ahead of them, for instance, like a team like Olmsted Falls, they still have to deal with Avon, for example. So things can happen, and they can certainly move themselves back into the top 8. But it's going to be difficult because they're,
Well, the problem for them is, let's say they lose to Massillon this week. Not saying they will, but let's say they lose. Okay, they're 5-3. They could easily win their next 2 games against Talmadge and Kent Roosevelt. That's not going to get you a lot of computer points.
No.
And as we know, their best win this year right now is over Revere. Revere's a good football team, but that's not going to be that game changer that's going to cause the computers to put you into the top 8.
Yeah. I'll be curious. There's one thing we saw last week when we were over at NDCL, and they were playing a team that, if you're favoring, we're not doing point spreads in high school football, but looking at a team that's favored. Benedictine was favored over NDCL, but I thought, the Lions came out and played aggressive, they played strong, and they kept themselves in that game really until the 4th quarter, when finally I just think, Benning was able to pull away. But I think that's going to have to be that kind of effort from Barberton. They're going to have to come out. They're going to have to be fearless. They're going to have to play sometimes maybe with a little reckless abandon.
And they've got to limit the mistakes. Because that is what burned NDCL last week, is that 3 times they got down by the goal line. First drive of the game, they were stopped on downs. Later on, they threw an interception, and they ended up driving for a touchdown on the very next drive. And then first drive of the second half, they fumble.
Yeah.
And even despite all of that, they were only down by a touchdown going into that 4th quarter before Benny pulled away. And you think, man, had they been able to limit those mistakes, maybe it could have been a different ball game.
Could have been a different game. So that's going to be, I think, the prescription, as you say, for the Magics. They're going to have to play almost letter perfect against Massillon. It can be done. Nobody's indestructible.
No.
I think it can be done. I think this is a big game, though, I think, for Massillon, again, because this is probably one of their bigger tests between now and McKinley. And how are they going to respond to coming up on coming on the bus, coming up north, playing a Barberton team that they're, it's not necessarily a team that they play every year. How are they going to handle that? So I'm curious. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And we don't usually get to see these teams during the course of the regular season.
Especially Massillon, because they usually have their own. Let's just say it's a little bit tougher to cover some Massillon games, both for distance and other reasons that I won't get into here. But that's why we kind of jumped at the opportunity to cover this, because we do want to see this Tiger team play. And we talk about the talent gap. Look, Barberton's a very good football team. We know that. Here are the D1 recruits on Massillon's roster.
How many?
6. Terrence Keys, senior, has offers from 4 schools, running back.
Unbelievable.
Aiden Longwell, the quarterback, who is the Massillon's all-time leader in passing yards and touchdown passes. He's got offers from 2 schools. Luke Murphy, senior, currently has an offer from Kent State. He's a safety. It's the juniors, though, Dino, where you really start. Jaden Ballard may be the best wide receiver in Northeast Ohio, maybe even all of Ohio. He's only a junior. He's committed to Ohio State already, and he's going to be back next year, so look out. Andrew Wilson-Lamp is his receiving mate. Not as good as Ballard, but certainly has some talent. He has offers from 5 schools. And another junior, Terrence Rankle, on the O-line, offers from 5 schools already. Most of those on the offense, Luke Murphy kind of helps anchor the defense. He's done a very good job of that, but it's a different animal for Barberton when you're going against a team that has 6 D1 recruits, including one that could play a big role on Ryan Day's team.
It's the Hoban factor. Like, when you were Avon last year in the playoffs, and all of a sudden, as great of a season as you had, and as great as Mike Elder and his coaching staff do preparing their kids to play, just the athleticism of Hoban and all those D1 caliber players, it just at some point it comes to bear in those close games when you have when you figure like you have teams that are evenly matched.
You often say in the end that talent wins out above all.
Exactly. A couple of nice comments here. Somebody mentioned, and I'll give them a plug, Midview.
Yes.
Shout out to the Middies. DJ Shaw and company upset Olmsted Falls. That was a big, big win for Midview.
A nice bounce back year for the Middies after what was really a bad season last year. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I think they know that too. 4-3, they're in the playoff hunt. Not sure if they're going to get there, but they put themselves in the conversation in Week 8. And maybe Old Falls got caught looking ahead to that Avon game a little bit, which we'll get to that a little bit later. Yeah. But it's, like you said, big win for Midi, and that does kind of help disrupt some of that balance of power in Region 6.
Yeah, Carolyn says, keep up the good work, guys. Thanks. I mean, I'll tell you what, this is fun. I mean, high school football is fun. Marvin, shout out to Twinsburg. Listen.
Oh, yay. Did they finally win a game this past week, my alma mater?
I didn't even get a chance to check it out.
Now I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah, I know. Somebody shouted out Twinsburg. I mean, we have to.
And Twinsburg. Okay, they're Region 5. Twinsburg, my alma mater, lost again. 38-0 to Brecksville.
Oof.
They were supposed to be good this year, man.
No, they weren't.
I just want to know.
We almost did. Their game with Aurora.
I just want to know, when I was there, I never played football. I was never good enough to play high school football. But when I was there, they went to the playoffs 2 out of 4 years. Mm-hmm. They beat Mentor my junior year. Since then, they have not had a winning record.
I remember when they beat Mentor. That was, you talk about shock and awe.
One of the biggest nights in Twinsburg history. I was there. I was in the stand. Sure. I'm still upset because the cops wouldn't let us rush the field. But it was.
Come on.
I would say it's the biggest night in Twinsburg football history. But yeah, that was fun. All right, let's get to top 5. Let's segue to the top 5.
Yeah, we've got what matters most coming up at the top of the hour, so we got to be out before that. So
we'll try to get through this quick. Mentor number 1, that's kind of an obvious one. The unanimous number 1 in our poll. They beat Brunswick 45-0. Dino, Ian Kipp had 4 total touchdowns in this game. They outgained the Blue Devils 517-83.
Yeah. Have they gotten some more movement on the national rankings?
Yes, they have. We know that they're first in the state rankings. USA Today, they've moved up to 16th. National Prep Poll, they're also 16th. Max Prep's Excellent 25, they're up to 14th. High School Football America, they are 13th. The Max Preps Freeman Computer Rankings, these are the ones that we've looked at all year. They're now 8th in the nation.
Wow.
So I'm not saying that they're going to overtake these teams like Mater Dei and whatnot, but they put themselves in the conversation. That's what matters.
Absolutely.
They get Shaker Heights this week.
Yeah, it's a Saturday game.
Massillon, number 2, we kind of knew. We've already talked about them. So they beat, great win over Gateway. They had 21 points off 4 turnovers in that game. Yeah. So a good
opportunistic.
Nice out-of-state win for the Tigers. St. Edward, in what was one of the more anticipated games of the year. Ignatius, that little revenge factor after getting knocked out by the Eagles in the playoffs. St. Edward beat St. Ignatius on Saturday 7-3 in an absolute knuckle-dragger.
Slugfest. Yep.
And Joseph Romani had the game-winning touchdown. They are second in the AP poll and are also starting to kind of gain traction in those national polls. They're a lot lower, kind of in the 20s. But they get Clarkson Football North this Friday night. Now, you laugh.
From Canada, right?
You laugh. Clarkson beat St. Ignatius earlier this year.
You're right, they did.
In a game that I think Chuck Kyle would even tell you they should not have lost, and that may be what hurts them when playoff time comes.
So it's a don't stub your toe situation.
And they certainly did in that situation. So good win for the Eagles. Archbishop Hoban keeps on rolling. They actually dropped to number 4.
Yeah, I think that the strength of St. Edward beating St. Ignatius, I think that kind of, it's like, okay, well, Hoban, you lost to St. Ignatius. St. Edward beat St. Ignatius. So that was kind of, I think, my mentality of moving St. Edward up to 3rd.
And as we mentioned, Hoban really, we know they're a good team. They really haven't beaten anybody that great this year. They beat Benedictine, which is a good win, but not on the level of what St. Edward has had to play, what Menor has had to play, some of those other schools. But they did beat Lake Catholic. Victor Dawson, who's the backup to Diamante Trianum, had 135 yards and 3 touchdowns on the game. They get Padua Franciscan this week in what that's probably make or break for Padua.
Yeah, that's a big game.
I'm not sure if they can pull it out, though, unfortunately.
They're 10th in the region, so they'll be certainly watching how Barberton does right above them.
For sure.
In Region 6.
For sure. And, Dino,
who's your new number 5?
New number 5, the Avon Eagles. Avon,
soft spot for
I know you have been voting for them all year.
Yep.
It was really between, I think, them and Mayfield for that 5th spot, and you couldn't go wrong with either one. Avon probably has the best win out of the 2 when they beat Avon Lake in the opening week. They got a nice win over North Olmsted this week, which they were only up 17-7 going into the 4th quarter.
That was, I think, a little bit of a test for them to kind of, figure out, okay, what do we need to do to win? It was 38-7. It was the final, but it certainly was not. The score did not indicate how close that game was.
Well, the big thing for them now is they lost their star running back, Nick Perusik, for the season in their last game.
Boy, that hurt.
With the knee injury.
That hurt. He is such an integral part of what they do. They've got North Ridgeville this week, and then they've got 2 tough ones to finish it out at Olmsted Falls, and then they'll host Amherst before the start of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, we know that they probably got that Hoban game on their mind from last year, how they just got blown out of the water, and they've got that revenge factor. We mention that all the time on their minds. Let's get back there. Let's do it right this time. Unfortunately, when you lose a guy like Perusik, it's going to hurt your chances. Now, I still think they're going to make the playoffs. I still think they're going to be a very high seed. I still think that they're going to win a few games in the postseason, but it's going to be an uphill battle, and I think they know that.
Yeah. And also, the teams that got votes are the teams that were kind of on the fringe.
Yes.
Yeah, Mayfield
7-0 as well. I actually had them in my top 5, but I don't begrudge anyone for putting Avon over them. It was really a flip a coin at that point.
And Aurora.
Aurora, too.
Also unbeaten.
You've got to, after their great win over Barberton. 2 other games that I was texting you and Munch about when you were calling the game this past weekend. Euclid falling out of the rankings after a big win by the Solon Comets this past weekend. I believe it was on the road at Euclid.
Yeah, it was.
Pat McQuaid, the keeper, with just a minute remaining. And we knew it was gut check time for the Comets after 2 bad losses, and oh my goodness, are they going down that path again this season? Well, here they go. They once again get that huge win. The only question now is, can they keep it going through the postseason?
They're 5th in their region, and they're poised right now for a potential rematch in the first round with McKinley. That's, if the playoffs started today, that's who they'd play. So, it's interesting now, just to kind of, as we wrap things up here, you're starting to kind of see, I think, the elite teams, and then the good teams, and then those that are kind of on the outside looking in, and I think those teams that are unbeaten, and then you also throw obviously St. Edward Hoban in there. I mean, they're really good.
Yeah.
I mean, Northeast Ohio is really loaded again as we look ahead to the playoffs.
By the way, one other loaded team that I just want to get to real quick because they've had a soft spot in our hearts for a long time. Kenston losing to Chardon again.
I know.
On the last play of the game.
Again.
Keaton, do I have this right? Ziegenfuss.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I guess I misspelled that. 26-yard field goal as time expired to beat the Bombers in Chardon on Friday night. It's getting interesting, Dino. You mentioned there's a lot of those elite teams, but those what you would call good teams are making some noise too, and they're getting some of those big wins, and it's going to make things very, very interesting down the stretch here and as we go into the playoffs.
And looking like Kenston, they've got Madison, they've got Riverside, and then they've got a Week 10 showdown with Mayfield. And that might be, for home field for those teams and things like that. That's going to be a huge game. Again, don't be surprised Week 10, that would be one of our nominees to vote on.
You do think if they're almost thinking, I'm not saying they're tanking on the season, of course not, but are they almost thinking, okay, let's just get to the playoffs, we know what we can do, and go from there?
Hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I felt like when I saw Kenston against earlier in this year when they played Chagrin Falls, I mean, it was kind of like, they all told me, we're on a mission, we're on a mission, we're on a mission. It's hard to say. I would say this, though. I'll be curious to see how they turn things around against Madison. Madison's a pretty good team. I mean, it's a team that Kenston should beat, but how well do they pick things up and move on? Because they got to make sure that they want to still be a home team in that Region 9. And you've got all those tough teams, the Auroras, New Phillies, Streetsboro, Steubenvilles ahead of them. So that you still have a lot to play for. All right, that's it for us here again. Thank you all for voting. A great week of voting. Our game of the week Friday night will be Massillon at Barberton. We'll join you at about 6:50 for all the action, and Tyler will keep us updated throughout the night with scores. So, again, what matters most? Russ Mitchell, Sarah Shookman, Betsy Kling, and Nick Camino on deck here and ready to go at the top of the hour. So make sure you join us for that. And, again, thanks for watching the WKYC.com High School Football Game of the Week preview right here on 3 News Facebook Live and YouTube.